Hey everyone. Today we're going to be discussing Armored Core 6. We're going to be discussing what's good, what's bad, what they're keeping from the older games, and what they're bringing in that's new. Now, some of you are going to be new to the franchise. We're going to PC for the first time. I'm very excited about that. So, first, I'm going to discuss what Armored Core is. If you are already familiar with the franchise, go ahead and skip on to the next timestamp. So, Armored Core is a mech combat game with a heavy focus on customization. You are going to be designing your own personal mech with lots of interchangeable parts: legs, arms, torso, generator, computers, like internal stuff, radiator, um, to really make your own personal favorite giant fighting robot, which was then going to function as a mercenary for a variety of corporations. This is a mission based game, so instead of walking around all over the place, like some of the open world games that are going on. What you're going to do is you're going to drop into a mission, a specific location, a clear objective, and once you've completed that mission, you're going to go back to the garage with your new money, buy some more parts, tinker with your robot some more, and go out on your next mission. That's going to be raiding the convoy, killing the bad guy, blowing up the base, protecting VIP, etc. Now, there's going to be a factions dynamic to the game with the corporations. They're all in competition. They have different agendas, and they will absolutely pay you to sabotage each other all the time. Now, this means that when you choose who you sell your services to, it will impact the story and the overall ending of the game. So you're going to wind up wanting to play through the game multiple times to see how you can do the game differently. So first off, we're going to cover the basics. We're going to look at general gameplay mechanics, and we're going to look at graphics. Now, graphics are expected to be kind of mid, and there's two reasons for that. The first one is that they're going full cross-platform. That means last gen and next generation consoles, and that means that they cannot make the game of a quality higher than what a last generation console would run as like one of their A games. So we're going to look at a game that's like an A game for the last generation, not an A game for this generation in terms of graphics. The second reason is that they are making this using From Software's own engine. They're not using Unreal Engine 5, they're using From Software engine. And that engine is currently at 10 years of life, which in the world of tech is like, that's antique. But they've been making games with this. They're 300 programmers. They make one game at a time with this engine, and they've been doing it for 10 years, and they've been making some absolute bangers. All right. They just made Elden Ring with this engine. That is no small feat. And it shows that engine has stood the test of time. It will eventually have to be replaced. But the upside to this is that these people are very good at what they do with this engine. And while that engine is not capable of creating cutting edge graphics, it is capable of creating cutting edge gameplay. And if you're a gamer like me who values really smooth combat, quality gameplay, quality story over a super high resolution tree, you'll be right at home. If you want to push those graphics to the next level, you might have to look elsewhere. Now, the gameplay, surprisingly smooth. In the footage we've seen of people playing, we're seeing a highly mobile battlefield, and we see them discuss, the people playing it, they're discussing that they feel that they can really feel the weight of the mech that they are using. It's supposed to be like the size of like a building, while maintaining a highly mobile, fast-paced battlefield. That is not easy to do. Now, the next point of interest I would like to talk about is the overall length of missions is going to be drastically increased. Now, former Armored Core games had limitations on the size of missions. If a mission was bigger than this, you will run out of ammunition. Your health pool cannot realistically be expected to last that long. And so they just kept these as a series of very short missions. However, in this game, they are introducing new mechanics to make these missions substantially longer. You will have repair kits and supply zones. Now, you will have 3 repair kits at all times. It's not an upgrade thing or a thing you tinker with. It's just what you have. First mission, you'll have 3 repair kits. Last mission, you'll have 3 repair kits. And when you use them, you will gain health. It will also negatively impact your overall mission ranking. So if you are a newer player or just having a hard time with a specific mission, you can make that mission easier While if you are a tryhard, a perfectionist, a completionist, you can push yourself and go for that juicy grade S ranking by choosing not to use the repair kits. Uh, Next, we have resupply zones, where it's basically like a checkpoint. When you get to it, you get reloaded up with all your rockets and missiles and all these good things, allowing you to continue to destroy everything ahead of you farther into this mission. And this means that these missions are able to be several times larger than missions in previous Cores games. And this is expected not only to make the game more fun in general, but also to affect the length of an average playthrough. From Software is estimating that a playthrough of these games should take an average gamer between 50 to 60 hours. And that's not counting needing to play through again to see the other alternate endings. So let's check out some of the new mechanics. Now, people who are familiar with Armored Core might be aware that earlier renditions of the game have struggled with finding a sweet spot between catering to the core audience who want really advanced customization options and new players who find if it becomes too complex, it's a deterrent and they're like, the skill curve is too high. I'm going to go play something else. I thought I was just going to blow stuff up with giant robots. And earlier renditions of the game have catered, I think, a little bit too hard to the core audience. There were complex weight mechanics. It had to balance out. We started to strap cables around to do suspension for weight. And I think a lot of new gamers kind of just phased out or like because of that. Now, what we're looking at this time, we're seeing new mechanics that I think are they add an extra level of depth to the gameplay and to the customization, but aren't as necessarily as complex. We're looking at operating system upgrades and we're looking at core upgrades. And these will give you special abilities separate from building your robot itself and choosing the parts. And then you choose these upgrades, which will give you additional abilities that are really useful in a clutch. We've seen a few things revealed. Defensive abilities like short-term shields and stuff like that, mobility upgrades. We've seen even offensive upgrades are very likely, uh, and that allowing you to have special abilities that will make your robot just a little bit more unique and make your combat more dynamic. Now, these gameplay mechanics are not going to be available at the very beginning of the game. And again, I believe that this is an attempt to even out that learning curve. You're going to play the game for several hours, and then you will unlock these upgrades. So you're going to go through learning curve 1 and then learning curve 2, like a little bit later. So it's not all at once. The next thing I would like to look at here is lock mechanics. Now, in earlier Armored Core games, that you would choose your fire control system, your little targeting computer, and you would get like a big lock on square on your screen, and if your enemy was in that square, your gun would aim at them. And if you got a big one, then it was generally like shorter range, but it's very easy to get the enemy in the square. And then like ones that would be smaller, but be more functional from farther away. And so players, depending on what weapons they were using and how skilled they were, would choose different firing control systems for their robots. Now, in this game is introducing a new feature called auto lock. Now, auto lock is more similar to the mechanics used in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, where you select a specific enemy, and if you any attack you make will target that enemy. What that means for campaign is that when you use auto lock in campaign, it will make campaign easier. It will make gameplay easier for newer players. And if you don't like auto lock mechanics, you can just not use them or turn it off and play through the campaign your own way. And so it shouldn't really negatively affect gameplay for committed players, but it should make the game easier for people who are checking it out. And I think that that's great. Now, there is a very, very reasonable concern about how that might affect PvP And I'm going to discuss that later in this video when I discuss the arena. The next mechanic I would like to discuss, they will be introducing a mechanic called stagger. Now, this is exclusive to bosses, I believe, and it's kind of self-explanatory. You deal a heavy amount of damage potentially to a specific location, and when you do so, the boss will become temporarily disabled and vulnerable to massive damage. Now, this is going in line with an overall game concept change that they are intending to make the bosses a much bigger part of the game. Now, earlier course games, your bosses were usually just rival mechs and you would have a duel. However, what we are seeing here is a wide variety of really exciting bosses, more like they're taking a page from their Dark Souls and Elden Ring playbooks and making bosses that are absolutely terrifying, huge, complex, very powerful, and very rewarding feeling when you finally beat them. And so integrating stagger mechanics is just going to add an extra level of depth to the boss engagements that we're going to have. They've revealed a few of these bosses I'm very excited about. There's the melee oriented boss with energy fists. There's a rotating missile platform that launched like thousands upon thousands of missiles. Like, it was ridiculous. And there was this giant walking armored centipede thing. So I think that we're going to expect a lot more. They aren't revealing too much. They're being very careful to keep that hidden. But I am excited. I am very excited to see this new world of absolutely terrifying, huge, dynamic, armored core bosses. All right, so the next thing we're going to be checking out here is arena combat. Now, we're going to have PvE and PvP, of course. I'm going to cover PvE first here really quick. We're looking at an expansion on this. In previous renditions of the game, PvE has been largely limited to duels one-on-one with mechs, and you would just face more and more difficult mechs the farther into the arena you go. You kind of unlock the next fight by beating the first one, and then you get cash prizes and you buy better parts and you do better in mission, which is fun. But it looks like they are bringing in challenges that are involving multiple groups of smaller enemies, and they haven't revealed very much. But the fact that we've seen gameplay footage of a player in arena fighting a group of smaller enemies really opens the door for a very wide array of challenges. I'm going to be optimistic, but we haven't been promised anything yet. So we really, well, over the course of the next week, we're going to find out. And I'm hoping for a really dynamic PvE arena option. But let's get to the juicy part, the part that we've all been waiting for. Player versus player. Now, first up, we're going to cover the matchmaking system. The matchmaking system has been described as basic. Create a lobby, players join, and you jump in like old school. We're not looking at a points-based skill matchmaking system or anything like that. I want to play a game on this map with these people, and people join in, and you're on the game. That's it. And this could be good. It could be bad. I don't know how wide of a range of skill discrepancy we're at risk of finding. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out in the game. The biggest concern going on is hard lock. Now, to make the game easier for newer players, they brought out this hard lock mechanic where you say, I'm going to target just this opponent, and then every shot you fire is going to aim at that opponent, and you don't really have to try. You can just focus on flying around and dodging missiles, and you just hold down that fire button, and your arm is just aimed at them. And auto lock in most games is only available through banned mods, and it's considered hacking. Like, people don't like that at all. Now, in an attempt to bring in more balance, they said, well, the auto lock comes with a disadvantage. If you aim manually, your shots are going to go where you aim it, but if you're auto locked, your shots are going to be less accurate. And so, like, at a longer distance, a skillful player will land a higher percentage of their shots than a player on auto lock. And You have a higher skill ceiling. You will be a better player and win more games if you're good without auto lock. However, that difference really does drop at close range where, it doesn't really matter where you're pointed. If you're at close range, like 100% of your shots are still going to hit. And I think players are going to make a variety of close range builds specifically to abuse auto lock mechanic in arena. And then other players are going to try to make builds perhaps that auto counter those builds. And we're going to see that whole battle and that whole storyline unravel over the next week. And we're really going to see whether or not something needs to be done to fix that. I personally would suggest having an auto lock disable option in arena. Maybe there's already one there and they just haven't felt to tell us about it. I really hope there is. I do not like auto lock for PvP, but we're gonna see how it turns out. Now, as far as maps are concerned, we've been shown I've PvP on at least 2 maps. Now, one of those was a large, mostly flat circle, and the other one was in a desert. Neither of those are particularly dynamic fighting zones. It's basically just fighting on a flat square or circle. Um, I understand that some people definitely want to have less terrain involved so they can focus on their pure skill with their mech versus their opponent. I really hope that there is a more dynamic PvP arenas available. Like I want to fire missiles that will level buildings in cities if I miss. That's fun. We'll see if they have it. They haven't revealed it. The next thing we're going to be exploring is going to be the build controversy, and this is a tale as old as PvP. Is it my strength build are the best? Dexterity builds are the best. Dexterity builds have been in most games the best. And in this case, this takes the form of like a bipedal build versus a tank treads very heavy and slow, high weapons power build. And people are going to be like, well, a tank build is objectively going to be easier because you're really you don't dodge as much, you focus more on shooting. While a dexterity build, it's really on you with a dexterity build to dodge the shots, but if you can do so, I think the skill ceiling would be a bit higher, and that's just how the nature of strength versus dexterity tends to turn out. Strength being easier to master and dexterity having a higher skill cap. Although there's been a surprising amount of focus onto quads, which is 4 legs. So it puts you kind of in the middle there. And we're just going to see, balanced dex or strengths, quads, bipeds, or tanks. There's going to be a lot of new video footage on the pros and cons of playing one way or another in the arena over the coming week. I'm definitely going to participate in that. That's going to be the high point of my week. So I look forward to seeing you all next week doing a review video after actually getting to play the game. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any opinions about the gameplay, any input about the game itself, or inputs about the video itself, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll see you all next week. Have a great day.